thank you for being with us, Dan, and thanks for being a member. And really look forward to getting a 14-minute update.
I'll only use 13 and a half.
Awesome.
So I appreciate your having me. And again, small group, happy to just make it as informal as we can be. So we are Public Insight. We are a market intelligence provider. And what I hope to accomplish in the 13 minutes we have now is really around kind of big picture, the role of market insights in informing recruiting and business development strategy. We've seen some very specific applications of using market insights, whether it's using ours or using other people's, and then actually show you how kind of we apply it and how our partners use our data in different ways. And so that's really my objective. So here's what I put together is as a very brief agenda. What are market insights and why does it matter? And I've used the word insights intelligence kind of interchangeably. So we're really, thus piggybacking on our name, Public Insight. So what are market insights and why does it matter? And then how can market insights provide labor context, improve business development, and complement service deliverables? So those are really the kind of the takeaways for what I'd like to accomplish. And I know a few folks that are watching, so I'm interested in their feedback as much as anything around what it is that we do. It's kind of interesting. So you had Aspen Tech on, and great company. The thing that we like to stress is that we are an analytics organization. So kind of piggybacking on Dustin, what he said, it was, really our focus is around market insights. So our platform is built around currently 153 market metrics. And so we say, what are market insights? We're talking about things like posting turnover, open days in postings, all the way to min-max percents for compensation and net promoter score for employer reputation and supply-demand ratios. Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. We're not trying to provide, I like to say the crude oil. We're trying to provide the gas that's going to power the engine. So what we do is really we curate data from across the spectrum. Now, we made a choice early on to concentrate on a single posting platform, and the reason it's kind of interesting again to compare Lana, who I know very well, great company. Our approach is really around the fact that we can get all sorts of nuggets of information buried because we know the page layouts, we know where to pull in the data. So we'll pull in things like predictive fill rates. We'll pull in and predict fill rates. We'll look at things like urgency indicators. These are all things because we know the source, which in our case is indeed Glassdoor as the primary source of the data. We are also expanding to incorporate LinkedIn data. So you see that on the slide. So really our focus is around the 153, market metrics that cross these various spectrums. And so really the whole goal is to transform, like say lemons to lemonade. So we're trying to pull in this data that sits below the surface and pull it into actionable KPIs. And our solution is built around the Microsoft BI stack. It's not limited to Power BI. You see Power BI here, but certainly we drink the Microsoft Kool-Aid, which includes a whole host of BI technologies, and really trying to leverage those to produce KPIs. So let's talk about really what different market perspectives exist. So really, when we're talking about market insights, we're talking about different perspectives. And I've got three here that I just want to touch briefly on. The first is what I like to call labor market context. So, we we don't exist in a bubble. We exist in a broader ecosystem, a broader labor market. And people traditionally use various job reports to kind of understand what's going on. The interesting thing about the labor market context is that, we've traditionally relied upon government sources for this. And, what we see here is still a little bit questionable because the Bureau of Labor Statistics is based on surveys. Those surveys are based on response rates. And so we see things like job openings that are, still 23% above pre-pandemic levels, still would be in record territory if we didn't have a pandemic. And we look at that and we compare that to, let's say, job posting volume, which is between 15 and 20% below last year. So we look at that and we always have to have a balance what the government has as indicators against what the market is telling us is the reality of the market. So that's what I call labor market context. The second is what we might take a step down further, let's say to a 10,000 foot view, which is industry and regional context. And there we're looking at more things that are germane to understanding, if I'm a company trying to hire, how do I compare it to the rest of my industry? How do I compare it to the areas that I'm hiring in? And that's where we kind of dive deeper into understanding the forces of job seekers against job postings, understanding supply demand, the workforce movement, and understanding workforce sentiment, which is a big area. We published a series of blogs on happiness in the workforce because we see that as a big driver of what's moving people from point A to point B. And then the last is what I like to call competitive context, which is, really getting down to brass tacks, which is how do I compete? We use this expression in, which I don't particularly like, but the war for talent, right? So how do I win in that war for talent? And these are really ways that our partners are using our analytics and our data to be able to get a competitive advantage. And so, when you look at then that competitive context, they're asking these kinds of questions. Who's hiring? Are they effective? What is the competitive landscape? Are we competitive? How are we positioned? What are our relative strengths? Where are the talent pools? And how can we source alternate pools? All of these are kinds of questions that go towards understanding really competitive context. So with that, I'm just going to spend maybe 2 minutes and leave a couple minutes for, any thoughts on the chat window. So we have actually two ways that we distribute our analytics. So this is what we call our self-service analytics. Just like if you go through the Burger King drive-through, the intent with this is to, provide a way of getting quick answers. So what I've done here is I'm going to show you three dashboards that we use in self-service analytics. This first one, and the context here is we're looking at nurses. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's say, nurses in Florida. So we've got a different perspective. So what we're looking at here then is basically some metrics that we look at for nurses for the past 6 months. So we're looking at not only posting volume, but reposting rates. I like to maintain that posting volume as a metric by itself is a terrible metric because, we've tracked about 40% reposting rates, across the board. And you can see here is no exception. A private duty nurse has 75% reposting rate. And that's much more higher than the rest of the market. We do show multiple ways that you can look at this data. The first one is at a table view, and then we can look at the trends over time using a KPI view. So just different ways of looking at the data. So here, looking at nurses in Florida, we could see a pretty significant growth rate between March and August, but it's been recently declining. I'm going to jump over and show two more really quick ones. This one is looking at the same data, but looking at compensation. So what are the max, and ranges of compensation, and what postings have compensation. This goes back to the salary transparency issue. And then the last one just is kind of, and again, we can look at this by KPI view. Our whole goal with this is to make this data actionable again. So it's, what kind of data is going to be actionable. Oh, I still have the last 6 days here. Let's make that 6 months. Okay, that looks a little better. All right, the last thing is, my favorite area is employer reputation. I heard you guys talking about Net Promoter Score. We look at nurses here in Florida, and we're trying to understand what things are important to nurses. And we can look at that not only through the ratings, but we can also look at that through things like sentiment scoring. So here we're applying text analytics to break down the data to determine, what things are most important to nurses. And we can, then look at that by employer. But I think that my favorite thing is, opinion mining and understanding, what things make for a happy nurse. Well, you could see that pay is number 2, but place is number 1. Management always is like 50-50 split between positive and negative, staffing, benefits. So we always find typically that pay and benefits are table stakes. They tend to be in between 5th and 10th in the list. Here it's a little bit higher at number 2. Maybe that's Florida, I don't know, but that gives you an idea again. And we can look at this and say, okay, what things are most important to people, and are they trending up or down? So with that, I've got, I cut myself off at 11 minutes. So if you guys have any thoughts or questions, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
That was great, Dan. I just popped a question in the chat about, you mentioned data from Indeed and Glassdoor, for example, and didn't know if that was through a partnership, or how do you partner with them formally?
No, we are, I hate to use the term a scraper of data, but that is, so, we are looking at anything that's in a public persona is fair game. So we are, I've done demos to Indeed, so it's not like we're hiding, and they like what we're doing, but we do not have a formal partnership, and that allows us also, by the way, to swap out other job boards and other, we are not wedded to having to have that as our sole source. But the thing that we don't want to do is the lowest, I call it the lowest common denominator, which is go so much after posting volume that we miss things that are really important. Like we have coming out in our next fall release, we're looking at sponsored jobs. So we're looking at estimated fill rates of sponsored jobs versus non-sponsored jobs, or we're looking at like the quick apply button and the impact of that. So those things that again are actionable, and by having a predictable platform, that helps tremendously in that.
Yeah, that'd be a great insight. So I see Katrina has her hand up as well.
Oh, sorry, Katrina.
Oh, no, that's okay. Oh, my microphone is on top of my head. I had a question about whether or not you met with Jason Smith, because I think you should talk to him, because your platforms might have some partnership potential. Jason Smith is the founder of Audience Synergy.
Yeah, actually, I think we've got a meeting coming up. I'm going by memory, and my brain gets, but I
try not to do that on my case as well.
Well, Jason has a session coming up in 45 minutes.
Oh,
yes.
Cool. I thought I've signed up for it. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I think so, because I have an eye doctor appointment, but I think I'm signed up for it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Katrina.
Great presentation, very insightful, and
yeah, no pun.
There's a ton of power in what you collect, and what you just described about some of the deeper analytics into effectiveness of apply process and stuff like that. That's going to be amazing. So keep up the great work. Thanks for being a member. Thanks for presenting today. And